Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin, Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi sahli sadri wa yassirli amri, wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Ramadan Kareem to all participants and distinguished speakers. This is our second series of Webinar International with the topic the impact of COVID-19 on global halal industry, which presented by National Committee for Islamic Economics and Finance, Dinar Standard Association of Islamic Economists and Medan Area University. Ramadan Kareem with objective to explore the impact of COVID-19 outbreak and assess how far this COVID-19 affects global halal industry, and also to elaborate solution offered to sustain the global halal industry during and post COVID-19. With our awesome speakers, Professor Laurent, Marliere, President and CEO of IsFin, Professor Irwandi Jaswir from International Institute for Halal Research Training of International Islamic University of Malaysia, Mr. Rafiuddin Shikhoh, the CEO and Managing Director of Dinar Standard, Ms. Nahla Misbah, Senior Research Associate of Dinar Standard, and we also have Professor Jonathan Wilson, the Halal Branding Expert from Regent University London, United Kingdom. His speech will be recorded in a video. For your information, that you can read the full bio of all the speakers in the registration form. Dear ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, let's open this event by citing Basmalah. Bismillah. Our next agenda is Quranic recitation by Al-Mukarram Al-Ustaz Sudarmawan. Please, Al-Ustaz, the time is yours. Ustaz Sudarmawan. Assalamualaikum. Maybe there is a technical problem. Okay. Ustaz Sudarmawan. Assalamualaikum, Ustaz. Okay. Just to remind you that all the participants, that you need to turn off or mute your speakers to make sure that our program can be done smoothly and without any disruptions. And participants can write the questions in the show conversation feature in the Microsoft Teams platform. Okay, before we start with our main agenda, which is panel discussion, we have opening remarks from respective leaders. Firstly, I would like to call Professor Raditya Sukmana, the Head of Scientific Research Unit of Indonesian Association of Islamic Economists. Please, Prof. Raditya, the time is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Rafiki. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good, Alhamdulillah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Dear Mr. Afdhal Aliasar, as a Director of Islamic Economic and Halal Industry Development, KNEKS, Dr. Sutat Emir Hidayat, as a Director of Education and Research, KNEKS, Prof. Dadan Ramdan, as a Rector of Medan Area University, representative from Dinar Standard and Salam Gateway, our chairman, Dr. Ahmad Rafiki, distinguished scholar and honored ladies and gentlemen. I'm so thankful to the good collaborations between KNEKS and IAEI for organizing seminar with such an important topic in the current situation, which is in not favor to us. The COVID-19 has led us to significantly reduce our daily activity, hence it has an impact to the various industry, not to mention halal industry. But life must go on. This pandemic has to be looked in the positive way, including how halal industry can play its role during these situations. Alhamdulillah, this particular seminar has been able to bring prominent scholars in their respective discipline, not only academicians, but also practitioners. We do hope that this seminar shall bring us new ideas for us to conduct activities or research in the field of halal industry. As the head of Scientific Research Unit, IAEI, we expect all participants and organizers to gain as most benefit as possible from this seminar. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Prof. Raditya Sukmana. So our next opening remarks, Professor Dadan Ramdan, the Rector of Medan Area University. Prof, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rafiki. You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Prof.
Okay, thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la syarikalah wa asyhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Honorable Professor Laurent, President and CEO IsFin, Emerging Market Advisor. Honorable Prof. Irwandi Jaswir, INHART International Islamic University Malaysia. The Honorable Mr. Rafiuddin Shikhoh, CEO of Managing Director Dinar Standard. Honorable Mr. Nahla Mesbah, Senior Associate of Dinar Standard. Then Honorable Professor Jonathan Wilson, Halal Branding Expert, Regent University London, UK. Then Honorable Mr. Afdhal Aliasar, Director of Islamic Economy and Halal Industry Development, KNEKS. Honorable Professor Raditya Sukmana, Head of Scientific Research Unit of IAEI, and Honorable Dr. Sultan Emir Hidayat, of Director of Education and Research, KNEKS. And Honorable all speaker and participant of International Webinar Series, Islamic Economic and Finance, Solution on COVID-19 Pandemic Crisis in the second series on topic, the impact of COVID-19 on global halal industry. Ladies and gentlemen, as we all know together, pandemic COVID-19 has been having influence on various fields, including economics, politics, culture, and of course, education. The post-COVID-19 era will have an economy shaped by new habits and regulation based on reduced close contact interaction and tighter travel and hygiene restriction. The current disruption will change how we eat, work, shop, exercise, manage our health, socialize, and spend of free time at an unprecedented rate of change. Ladies and gentlemen, many people argue that the pandemic COVID-19 will continue and unpredictable to make place in various parts of the world, including Indonesia. Therefore, this seminar will be very beneficial for all of us, so that we will be better able to manage economic policies in the midst of the implementation of work from home to several places. In this condition, economic activities are not running as usual as before. There are many supermarkets temporarily closed, factories reduce their activities, so it gives impact on many people around the world. They are a positive value because people are increasingly concerned about cleanliness and care for the environment. Ladies and gentlemen, therefore, Islamic food are become alternative to fill food requirements with offer good and healthy food. The demand of halal food will offer immense growth opportunities. Market vendors should focus on the growth prospects in this fast-growing segment while maintaining their position in the slow-growing segment. So I have a big hopes this seminar can give good contribution and positive impact on the Islamic economy and finance in the world. I thank to KNKS for their cooperation and also for all the speakers and participants in this conference. May Allah give you and your family in good health, prosperity, peace, and full blessing in this holy month. Thank you. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Our next opening remarks will be by Mr. Afdhal Aliasar, the Director of Islamic Economy and Halal Industry Development of National Committee for Islamic Economics and Finance. Please, Mr. Afdhal, the time is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Rafiki. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The Honorable Professor Raditya Sukmana from IAEI, Professor Dadan Ramdan, Rector of Medan Area University, Dr. Sultan Emir Hidayat, Director Education and Research, KNEKS, the Honorable Speaker, Professor Irwandi Jaswir from INHART, International Islamic University, Malaysia, Professor Laurent Marliere, CEO of IsFin Global from UK, Brother Rafiuddin Shikhoh, CEO of Dinar Standard from UIA, Professor Jonathan Wilson from London, UK, and Ms. Nahla Mesbah, Dinar Standard, Egypt, and all participants. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, let us pray and thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God Almighty, the most gracious and most merciful, for only His blessing that we may gather at this remarkable event, International Seminar on Impact of COVID-19 on Halal Industry. Ladies and gentlemen, since it was being discovered last year in China, the COVID-19 coronavirus has spread around the world and been declared as a pandemic by the World Health Organizations. The outbreak has placed billions of people into lockdown as health services struggle to cope. The uncertainty around the virus has brought all experts, leaders around the world to strengthen the global solidarity in defeating COVID-19. These days are very hard for us to handle. It is not only about our health that has been threatened, but we'll also have to deal with economy restructuring and a new social order simultaneously. The condition has forced us to initially start discussions about several economic measures in tackling the impact of the outbreak. We are still uncertainty when this pandemic will end. We are probably going to face this condition for quite a long time until the vaccine of virus is found. Many countries are still struggling to halt the transmission of the virus, including Indonesia. It's now widely agreed that flattening the curve of the case has to be the primary determination that urged the country leaders to take response against the outbreak. Social restrictions policy has been taken by major countries to slow down the virus transmissions. It is required to reduce close contact between people that hopefully can curb the further virus transmissions. However, it was apparently enacting a heavy economic toll to the country. Social restrictions, or commonly known as social and physically distancing, has shifted the business continuity and social lifestyle into a new pattern. It is the new normal. How we work, study, shopping, manage our health, exercise, educate our children, and socialize are going to change. We will meet a new behavior and drive into a form of certain preference. Therefore, we need to able to figuring out the navigations to face a new reality of the world works. Compared to previous expected number, the movement of economy will also be slowing down. Ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 pandemic has hit our business and industrial sectors, including halal industry sectors. This could be destructive to our economy. A lot of business are forced to close and many companies must repatriate their employees in order to survive their business. This condition will lead to higher unemployment rate and also likely trigger another crisis. In this condition, we need to remain optimistic. We must not lose hope and look from another point of view. Technology has come up as the solution to survive on this shifting mode. Digital infrastructure will help us to go through the crisis. Remote work established as the default operating mode, or we have familiar with the terms of work from home. Digital platforms help business to actively meet the buyer, likewise to help business reactivating their supply chains. Households are still able to fulfill its supplies through e-commerce and delivery through online transportation service. Education institutions are moving online to provide ongoing learning with no physical contact and even for final assessment. Indeed, the digital infrastructure can be relevant across the business sectors. In effort to tackle this condition and prevent the economy from a severe destructions, we need to strengthen our government surveillance, especially on public health sector. Every measure that can support our healthcare sector, such as health infrastructure, pharmaceutical and medical device, need to get extensive concerns and asserted as the nation development priority, especially after this pandemic. Pharmaceutical research has the main role to overcome these situations. Hopefully, we can find the effective vaccines, especially halal vaccines, for human survival from this dangerous pandemic. Therefore, collaborations between researchers become a necessity that need to be developed and supported. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope this forum will be able to provide a new insights that can be used as responses in formulating policy recommendations, not only for Indonesia, but also globally. I express gratitude and appreciations to all panelists for their time and willingness to share their views and knowledge on these rising issues. Let's pray that this pandemic will be shortly over and we can manage more sustainable business for better society. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for the speech, for all the respective leaders, for the opening remarks. So before we continue, we have to make sure that our program be blessed by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. We have Al-Ustaz Sudarmawan for the Quranic recitation. So please, Ustaz Sudarmawan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
A'udzu billahi minasy syaithanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. مثل الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله كمثل حبة أنبتت 7 سنابل في كل سنبلة 100 حبة والله يضاعف لمن يشاء والله واسع عليم الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله ثم لا يتبعون ما أنفقوا منا ولا أذى لهم أجرهم عند ربهم ولا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون صدق الله العظيم. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, before we have the video from Professor Jonathan Wilson, I want to make sure that Professor Laurent is here with us. Professor Laurent, can you hear my voice? Are you joining us?
Assalamualaikum.
Alhamdulillah. Selamat pagi, Prof. Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you. Speak soon.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. So for our next agenda, we will watch the video from Professor Jonathan Wilson, the halal branding expert from Regent, University London, United Kingdom, on the reputation of halal branding. Please.
There is no sound.
Yeah, there's no sounds. Okay. Maybe just a few minutes or a few seconds, we will restart again the video.
Still there is no sound.
Yeah, still there's no sound. Wait.
Yes, Pak, wait a bit.
Sometimes with technologies, we have to be patient a little bit.
Some quick thoughts Halal for your event. I'm going to read some of these off some notes that I made. So here goes. I want to focus on reputation.
Maybe you can repeat. We will restart again.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullah. Greetings, hello, salamat datang. It's raining outside, so if you can hear the pitter-patter, we have rain in London. Okay, thanks very much for allowing me to share some quick thoughts on halal for your event. I'm going to read some of these off some notes that I made, so here goes. I want to focus on reputation for this video, and that's encapsulated in more detail in my recent book called Halal Branding. Now, I'm going to argue that we substitute reputation in a modern context with the word branding. In essence, branding is a strategic and concise means of expressing, amplifying, and controlling who you are, what you do, who you're associated with, and what you own. And you do that for competitive gains using a variety of communications methods and media, and those are collaborative and measurable. In the context of the halal industry, that means as a strategic brand portfolio, the architecture that we're designing consists of most likely a corporate brand linked to a product or service brand, an ingredient brand, which is fulfilled by halal certification, logos, things like that, and the overall grounded blend of other factors like your national or regional identity, that of the founders, and other local customs. Now, if we drill down a bit further in more detail, organizations are Muslim or non-Muslim owned. They have Muslim proportional representation from their employees or customers, and they offer products and services which are all halal, or maybe only a restricted number of their offerings are halal, and they have a presence in a Muslim majority or minority region. So, furthermore, it may be the case that particular offerings require increased labeling and marketing communications due to the nature of their proposition. So if you have a particular product which is not native to that region, it might require more communication demonstrating to your target consumer that this thing is halal, right? If it's not native to you. So if you are hot dogs, that's the one that we always talk about in Southeast Asia. According to some certification bodies, you would change the name from dog to sausage or something like that to avoid confusion. But also because it's an American product, people might be more concerned about whether that is actually a halal product. And even furthermore, they might be more concerned about what is the origin, who founded the company, what are their particular interests, are they Muslim friendly, do they respect and treat Muslims with dignity? So these are some of the factors that we take into consideration when we're trying to build a halal Muslim or Islamic brand. Now, having made this point, I want to go on to some other areas where I want to raise some questions, and I want to give you kind of further food for thought, right? So, question number one, do we spend enough money and time on branding, which has become such an important aspect of business today? When I look at a lot of companies, organizations, certification bodies, governmental initiatives, you could argue that the reputational aspect linked to branding is still quite quiet. We could do a lot more to amplify all of the good things that we do. Next question. Have halal, Muslim or Islamic brands formulated enough of a presence towards being able to deliver strong, robust, stable, premium, compelling, attractive, unique, and identifiable propositions? In short, tell me what the top global brands are. Tell me what the top halal brands are. Tell me what the top Muslim brands are. Tell me what the top Islamic brands are. I still think there's a long way in terms of us raising the profile and reputation of what it is that we do, right? And following on from that, what's the future roadmap? Where do we want this all to go? Is it about providing just simply food for a quarter of the world's population and growing? Or is this about something where we can demonstrate the beauty of our faith? Is it about strengthening national ties? Is it about developing stronger GDP? The list can go on and on, but I want you to consider what is the purpose behind why we're doing all of these things. And in particular, linking that to the brand, because the brand is that visualized representation authentically of what it is that we do and we're about, and the way that people can connect and find us. So now that I've made these observations, I want to drill down into some other things. And I'd like to remind you of two notable case examples that the Muslim civilization can be proud of. Firstly, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions offered transformational leadership, and their contributions and reputations continue to influence the world today. Al-Amin, the trustworthy, that is branding. So, Think about that. Think about how the human experience is really important. The stories about the companions and our noble prophet, how they lived, how they felt, what they liked, what they didn't like, their characteristics. Now, apply that to a company. How much time do we spend communicating those things? Probably not enough. The second example I want to give you is the compilation of a hadith, which we developed a methodology, a verification, and narration chains were developed. So we developed this art of verifying sources, evidence, narration chains, and classifying and ranking them. But if we fast forward today, when in the face of the coronavirus pandemic, fake news and social media messages spread like wildfire, and where it's almost a case where people are racing to be the first to share and to share widely, and that's at the expense of checking. Not a good idea if you want to build a brand that will last the test of time. The other point I want to make then is I want us to think carefully, and what I encourage you to do so, about the long-term struggle in the pursuit of establishing stellar reputations. But in doing so, encourage you not to think about halal as simply providing the permissible. We have to make the permissible unmissable, right? Put the spirit into spirituality. Embody the full range of human emotions and experiences. Celebrate, elevate, and energize. And people, inshallah, will congregate around your brand. Finally, I want to extend my well wishes and sympathy to all of those people out there who are fighting for their health, their lives, and their livelihoods. Sadly, some of my family have been affected by some of these things, and they are truly sobering times. I mean, I had an uncle who passed away, and then to think that you're watching a funeral online is just a really unusual experience, right? So please look after your minds and your bodies and your souls. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I look forward to seeing you all very soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bye.
Okay, for your information, that this video is exclusively dedicated to this event, so never posted in other occasions. So, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, we are now moving to the main program, which is our panel discussion with our distinguished speakers. But before that, let me brief some of the introduction related to the topic. I have pleasure in moderating this session. This topic is very interesting topic because not only we'll discuss about the halal product, but also market and industry. From our very experience in the related issues and expert in the field, we know that the halal industry consists not only halal food, but also tourism, travel, pharmaceutical, cosmetic, media, and recreation, which so far have positive development. The facts supported by the report of the state of the global Islamic economy by Dinar standard in 2019, that Muslims spend $2.2 trillion on halal and Islamic lifestyle sector in 2018. And then the expenditure on the halal and lifestyle sector increased by 5.1% compared in 2017. And also the halal and lifestyle sector are forecast to reach $3.2 trillion in 2024. So this is very positive development of halal industry. With regard to the COVID-19 impact, the cases reached 3 million cases up to date, and with 200,000 dead cases, which affecting 210 countries, including our OIC countries. So the important question is whether these positive numbers, positive development will remain as expected or will change during or post-COVID-19 outbreak. So let's start the first question to our distinguished speaker, Professor Irwandi. Prof. Assalamualaikum, Prof. Prof. Irwandi.
Assalamualaikum.
Okay, Prof. Prof, you were in the Halal Science Research for many years.
Yes.
Has also received the King Faisal International Prize in 2018 in the category of Service to Islam. And we know as academician, you have published hundreds of articles in reputable international journals, which are indexed by Scopus, with also citation over 1,000 citation. So my question to you, Prof, what basically are the challenges and the opportunities of the halal-related science during and post this COVID-19 outbreak? Please, Prof, maybe you have your opinion on this.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairperson, Dr. Rafiuddin. First of all, I would like, before I respond to the questions, I would like to thank Komite Nasional Ekonomi dan Keuangan Syariah, KNEKS, Mr. Afdhal and Dr. Emir from KNEKS, Honorable Professor Raditya Sukmana and Professor Dadan Ramdan, for kindly inviting me to become one of the speakers this afternoon. Thank you very much. In responding to the questions, what are the challenges and opportunities of the halal-related sciences during and post COVID-19 outbreaks? Allow me first to share a slide here. Can you see this?
Not yet, sir. Prof.
Oh, okay. How to do this?
Still not appear, Prof.
Yeah. Sorry, I have a slide to share. Okay, can you see this?
Okay, Prof.
Yeah. Okay. Firstly, we see how the industry before the COVID, as the moderator has mentioned just now, halal industry is a huge industry. It is 3.1 trillion US dollar industry. It is a lucrative. So when we see the impact of COVID-19 outbreaks to the industry itself, we have to see that.
Sorry, we don't see slides. We just see the.
Prof, can you click the file, Prof?
You see this?
We only see your folder.
Okay. Wait.
Maybe you can open first, then you can share. Open the file first.
You see this?
Not yet.
Okay. Sorry. How to open this?
I think you can choose the, okay, this one. Yeah,
You got it?
yes, Prof.
Yeah. Okay. So when we have
But
to.
it's not full screen. Can you do it full screen, please?
Okay. You got it?
Yeah, we still see your slide. Yeah, this is full screen.
Okay.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof.
Yeah, sorry for technicals. Okay, when we see how big the industry is, 3.1 trillion, as mentioned just now, it covered the whole range of product and services in halal industry. We call this as a halal ecosystem, starting from the production, including halal food and beverages, halal pharmaceutical, halal ingredients for food, pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, for example, and also halal cosmetic and personal care itself. It also includes services, halal logistics, Islamic banking and takaful, tourism, healthcare, and of course the halal infrastructure, industrial park, halal R&D, traceability system, standard, and certification. So when we see which one is got influenced by the COVID-19, we have to see one by one. I believe that the market of halal industry is still huge. Okay, but but for individual sector might be different. For example, halal food and beverages, it is influenced definitely, but at the same time, we still need food. We still need pharmaceuticals. Okay, perhaps cosmetics not really at the moment, but in the state of COVID-19, food and pharmaceutical are two things that are really in need. Okay, and then it may also influence logistics and a change of the mode of transportation, for example, where people nowadays are contact less contact. And then Islamic tourism very severely affected. I just read a news that in US, for example, unemployment insurance claim up to 6 million populations. 6 million just claim insurance because of unemployment. And then from the tourism, countries like Turkey, for example, or Indonesia, Bali, the tourism sectors are severely affected. However, I always look at the positive angle from every event. We see that the halal industry is still there. I believe so. Yeah, as long as we know how to handle it. Okay. For example, in the next slide, from the research and development point of view, I just give you an example from one findings of the raw material sample. We started from the source of origin until end of product or storage and distribution. Every step of this give opportunity for us to do something. Yeah. For example, if we cannot comply with halal in the step of processing, we have to come up with the idea how to make them becoming halal. If we cannot find the halal ingredients and alternative, for example, we have to come up with the idea how to replace them with the halal. This is what in our experience in the last 15 years, for example, the lacking of Muslim world. Yeah, the lacking of Muslim world. If we realize that out of 3.1 trillion, we can ask ourselves how much actually the Muslim countries earn from the industry. Not much. Yeah, the big players in halal industry still remain for those countries like Australia, New Zealand, Brazil, in Southeast Asia, Thailand, for example, and in poultry industry still Brazil. So this give, a big opportunity for Muslim countries to do something. I just give you example for cosmetic. Why Korea become major players in halal cosmetics? Why not Indonesia? Why not Malaysia, for example? So this question need to be addressed to us. One of the reasons why is it so, to me, is we are lacking of research and development. We are lacking of that. If we see that in the beginning of the COVID-19, let's say in January or February this year, most of Muslim countries they do not know what to do. If you realize this year, we do not have even masks. We do not know how to do analysis. How we do not have enough PCR, for example. Okay, so a lot of things need to be done for Muslim countries just because we do not have a strong research and development. So to me, right after COVID over, for example, we have to strengthen our research and development. We have to come up with innovative ideas. We have to come up with brilliant ideas to replace non-halal things, for example, and with halal. And of course, the way we run our halal business change. The digital economy, medical biotechnology, and empowerment of SME, to me, is the answer for post-COVID-19 era. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof, for your insightful explanation on the research related to halal. And maybe we go to Mr. Rafiuddin Shikhoh. Mr. Rafiuddin.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Mr. Rafiuddin, as you were keeping update on the halal industry report and forecast, as your organization also did. So what do you think? How is the future of the halal industry post COVID-19? And could it still contribute to the GDP or the economic of growth of the countries? Please, Mr. Rafiuddin.
Sure. So first, I begin in the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most beneficent. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Again, a very warm salams to everyone. Salamat Siang, as well as wishing all of you a very good Ramadan, inshallah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our qiyam and our siyam and our du'as in these challenging times. I'd like to also thank KNEKS and IAEI for organizing the series of very valuable discussions. As Professor Irwandi mentioned, the importance of research and being on top and ahead of strategizing based on research and intelligence. I'd also like to thank my fellow panelists, Professor Irwandi, Professor Laurent, and my colleagues here, Sister Nahla, to join. And respected moderator as well. I'd like to just confirm, Ahmad, that my screen is shared.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. So, Bismillah, I'd like to share, based on Dinar standard work, we are very actively researching and evaluating the current impact of this COVID-19 pandemic on the global halal economy and the economies of the OIC. We're also keeping our eyes on signals, early signals of what this post-COVID-19 could look like in terms of the impact on the halal industry. And my pleasure to share some comments in the first few minutes. As you can imagine, there's a lot that is happening currently. The world, needless to say, is going through unprecedented times. We have incredible impact worldwide to joblessness, job losses, latest IMF projections, World Bank projections on the economic impact is unprecedented. Most of us have not experienced anything like this in our lifetimes. But first and foremost, of course, the human impact of this pandemic, as we heard very solemnly from my brother Bilal, Jonathan Wilson from UK. You know, a lot of us are being touched by it. Many people are being affected by it, and our du'as and for them, for their families, as well as our du'a to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our shortcomings and take us out of this pandemic. But the question Ahmed and colleagues I'll focus on is what will the future look like? We are in a crisis management mode, but I'd like to focus on, inshallah, when we come out of this COVID-19, what will the change present as an opportunity and how and challenges for the halal economy, since that's the focus of the session. So 4 key questions. Number 1, which halal economy sectors have been impacted the most? Number 2, which countries are affected the most, because nations are at different stages of preparedness and ability to manage the economy as well. Number 3, what are the new areas of opportunities that are emerging? And number 4, what are some early signals of what the changed impact would look like? So I'd like to go through that really quickly. There are various studies being done, including ourselves, but I'd like to share a slide from some amazing work that's coming out of McKinsey, including they're doing country-by-country surveys as well, but this is an assessment of the top 3,000 global publicly listed companies across all sectors to see their impact on those sectors. Because while every sector is being hit worldwide, as we all can imagine, certain are getting hit worse than the others. And this is very instructive for us in the halal economy space as well. We're, after all, as Professor Irwandi also mentioned, we are part of the global economy, global supply chain. In fact, the biggest suppliers and participants are from the non-OIC countries. So we are part and parcel of the impact that the world is facing across the full value chain and supply chain. So with this perspective in mind, many of you are familiar with the state of the global Islamic economy work that we do. And without going into details about what is halal economy and not, as you know, there are these 7 key pillars or sectors that we have been focusing on. And vis-a-vis the latest data that's coming out, what you could see is the biggest immediate negative impact has been on the travel and tourism sector. And certainly the $189 billion of spending by Muslims on tourism is also significantly being affected. It's affecting the destinations within OIC countries, including Indonesia, as we all know, and the full ecosystem of the travel industry, HoReCa, hotel, restaurants, catering as well. And less so is modest fashion, but still is being impacted tremendously, and cosmetics a little bit. But the least, and sorry, I should mention Islamic finance, of course, as financial services industry are also significantly impacted. And the least impacted are food and pharmaceutical. Quickly to move on, we can go into details later, but in terms of countries being impacted, as we can imagine, not every country is prepared health services wise, as well as economic dependency wise. This data set is from Oxford Analytica, who have looked at the mix of 2 metrics. One is a country's health preparedness, as well as its exposure to exports. So an export-dependent economy is going to be more vulnerable in terms of the impact of the global supply chain and the global dependency on economic purchase and activity. So when you look at this, an interesting thing is, if you see at the bottom right, Bangladesh and Pakistan as examples, while they're underprepared when it comes to health services, because their exports are low relative to their GDP, they're less exposed to the global economic impact. So I just wanted to highlight that point. We have done a research in partnership with COMSEC, which is an OIC agency, on the food security of OIC countries. And essentially, even within OIC, there are 4 grouping of countries when it comes to the impact of food security vulnerability. And without, again, going into detail, this shows those countries that are economically stable but are food import dependent, which is group B1, and Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, UAE fall into that. And then the least developed, which is group B2, which are insecure both in terms of food, that is, they're food import dependent, plus economically they're not stable. And you can see Indonesia, fortunately, is on the right-hand side, which is you are agricultural capacity is high. At the same time, you have while you have the food system stability as well. So there's a lot of detail on the looking at it from that point of view. The third question, there are certainly certain key areas of opportunities that are developing, and I think this is what we will be building on. Again, my colleagues highlighted some of them, but just to share with you the areas we are tracking: high digital engagement. Online grocery shopping, as you all know, is surging worldwide, 20 to 30% in many markets. Healthy and non-contaminated food. In fact, as Professor Ahmed, in your early comments you mentioned, creates tremendous opportunities for halal food, global growth. We're also seeing fintech solutions, digital native financial and takaful propositions gaining momentum. We're seeing Islamic social finance growing. We are in the blessed month of Ramadan, and this is the time people give. And given the digital nature of fintech propositions, this is an area of growth. Online learning, education, and digital halal lifestyle and media and digital apps. On the government side, obviously, as I mentioned, food security is creating tremendous opportunity for the economies to consider halal exports and making their food ecosystem resilient by becoming producing more domestically or having the supply chain nearby. Finally, what are the early signals of what the future would look like, inshallah? What we are seeing today as early signals as, given the food and economic security that is driving the big concern in terms of resilience and sustainability, we're seeing that the halal market or halal investments are continuing to remain a priority. We are seeing this across Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, UAE, Nigeria, which are some of the biggest economies of the OIC. And obviously this forum and KNKS's effort is another signal towards that, but we are seeing this as a very positive future sign for halal economy. Second, we're seeing major jump in online consumption and services uptake, which is driving Islamic fintech, halal media and apps, and Islam-themed education. And finally, as I mentioned, Islamic social finance is also experiencing a boost. So with this, I will just conclude by saying we are coming out with a deep dive research brief, specifically first on the topic of what are the key signals of post-COVID new normal for food and agriculture sector. And inshallah, we'll look forward to sharing that with you May 7th. So back to you, Professor.
Thank you very much, Brother Rafiuddin. I think the explanation is very comprehensive. And, this is very good for us as a reference. How is the process of the halal product and industry? So now we go to the next question to Professor Laurent. Professor Laurent.
Assalamu alaikum, salamat pagi. As regards to you.
Waalaikumsalam. Professor, you are a prominent expert in preparing strategies related to the international businesses, as your organization also did. So the question is, can you share with us, Prof, the strategies to minimize the COVID-19 impact on the halal industry? And also, how can we recover quickly from this crisis? Please, Prof, maybe you have your opinion.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Rafiki, for an excellent coordination of this webinar. Many thanks to my friend Dr. Sultan for inviting me to speak here. I will with pleasure share some of my modest knowledge, pretty much like sharing an opinion. But first of all, let me wish all the participants and attendees to this seminar wonderful holy month of Ramadan, and hoping that they, their family, and their teammates remain healthy. In order to be very pragmatic here, because I think that our audience is composed of both entrepreneurs and academics, I have purposely put together what I would call a marketing survival kit for the halal industry during this pandemic. And if I can, I will share with you this document. Can you see it?
Not yet, Prof.
Let's see. Maybe.
Can you try? Okay, yes, we can see it.
Well, excellent. So this document will be available on my LinkedIn in after the seminar. Okay. So, Dr. Rafiki, your questions is twofold, and you're looking at minimizing the COVID-19 impact on the halal industry.
Okay.
What we have seen from the wonderful piece of knowledge shared by our brother Rafiuddin is that the halal industry is actually impacted differently according to the sectors. So be it the conventional industry, the conventional economy, or the halal industry, you will necessarily see that you have to find a specific answer by sector. Indeed, halal travel or halal food are not going to be impacted the same way as Islamic finance or modest fashion will be impacted. So basically, to minimize the impact of the COVID-19, first of all, you need to adapt your distribution channel to local suppliers. We have seen, and I'm a European, and we have seen here that one of the big impact of this pandemic was that a large part of our industry was actually outsourced in China, and that some strategic products were not available here. It can be products linked to, medics, or actually IT software, etc., which were produced in Asia. And so this has shaken the minds. And I think that for people active in the halal sector, it's also looking at more regional or easy to reach suppliers. That's number one. Number two, what's very important during a crisis is not to back down on the compliance, because one of the specificity of the halal industry, it is regulatory, it's compliance. And we will remember the terrible effects of the mad cow in the UK, where actually this crisis occurred when there were less controls, less regulatory, less compliance, and in times when you face crisis, you try to cut down on costs, and this should not be done on the compliance when it comes to the halal industry. Number three is what I would call the 3 T's: transparency, trust, and specifically traceability. So in the halal sector, you need to make sure that you can track, you can trace where, the whole chain of the halal supplying chain. Number 4 is probably, to go online and become more digital. I come back to that point. Number 5 is learning and preparing for the upcoming pandemic waves. And this is a sad comment, I'm afraid, but we probably have to cope with this kind of pandemic for several months, so there will be other waves that we will be hit again, and that's why we need to learn from the past experience. And so in your company, you should now work on operational manuals, pretty much like crisis manuals, in order to be effective when more similar issues arise. And number 6, what's interesting is that it's probably now the right time to dialogue with your government, with your authorities, to improve the regulatory framework for the halal producer or the halal industry. And that can be in the fields of testing, of certification, or import, export. Tax is important because we know that in the halal industry, the Sharia compliant segment is often more competitive when it is handled in a favorable tax environment. So you need to know that governments and authorities are very well aware of the impact of the crisis, and one of the leverage they have is on tax. So it's now time to go and speak to the government. Dr. Rafiki, I come to your second point, which is the recovery strategy. And indeed, we are right in the middle of the pandemic, and already we should be thinking about the post-pandemic era. So in this survival kit, I'm sharing with you 8 very powerful marketing tips that would make you, your company, stronger. First of all is to change your mindset. And here I quote Winston Churchill, who said, "A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity, an optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty." And indeed, in Islam, we have an interesting case where the Prophet Prophet, peace be upon him, saw a Bedouin in the desert not tying his camel. And he came to this gentleman and said, "Why don't you tie your camel?" And the gentleman said, "Well, because Allah is supervising him." And Prophet said, "Well, first tie your camel, and then, Allah will help you." And that's pretty much what the mindset should be here. You see the differences in success or failure in the leadership. So you first have to start with a leadership mindset. So number 1, change your mindset. Number 2 is to use strategically your time. So probably like all of us here, you are locked down at home. And that's a rare chance that you can get out of your daily routine to start thinking strategically. You need to be aware that after a very severe crisis like the world has faced after 9/11 or the 2008 financial crisis, well, many behaviors, many changes will remain. So you have to spend some time getting more clever on that. And you need to make sure you can adapt your business to how your clients are going to consume, how are they going to buy them. How can you go from niche to global with your halal products? So tip number 2, use strategically your time. Tip number 3 is to adapt your services to the new behavior, the new consumption, but not only the services, the delivery of the services, because the changes will occur not only on the services or the product themselves, but also for the delivery of these products. So number 3, adapt your services and their delivery. Number 4 is maintaining your marketing budget. And we understand that traditionally when there is an issue like a major crisis, well, the temptation is to cut on the budget and to reduce your marketing budget. And many of your competitors will do that. Well, that's very often a mistake because actually it can be an overreaction. And at some stage, in some month, this pandemic will be over. And it will be time for you to shine again. And it is probably also time, if you have some liquidity, to invest them in your budget. So number 4, maintain your marketing budget. Number 5 is to switch from the concept of matchmaking to switch to the concept of matchmaking instead of networking. So usually halal professional companies or professionals active in the Sharia compliance sector, how do they make their business development? Well, they attend large conferences like MIHAS, Gulf Food, Alimentaria in Europe. And the massive cancellation of these events, the fear to send your best professionals there and they could get infected, prevent that because all these events are postponed. So how do you do your business development now? Well, the trick is that if you step into matchmaking, you are in a more bilateral system. And the difference between networking, which is done in mass, and matchmaking is that matchmaking is based on market intelligence, understanding the specific needs of prospects, and targeting, opening the door of more focused prospects. So number 5, matchmaking instead of networking. Number 6 is to upgrade your digital communication. So all of us now have experienced the new softwares. We're using today Teams, but others will use Zoom, Slack, Loop, GoToMeeting, Skype, WhatsApp, WeChat, Viber, whatever. So it's probably interesting for you, especially if you're active at the international level, to master these different tools, because very often there is some cultural context to them. See, for instance, in the US, they will probably use Slack more. In China, they will use more WeChat. In the Middle East, WhatsApp is used. So in order not to look like an amateur and lose time when you organize your business development meetings or conferences, you need that you and your staff master these different tools. Number 6 is then upgrade your digital communication. Number 7 is to focus on digital marketing. Because when you've got a crisis, you have to step into digital. The more crisis, the more digital. So sometimes it's an opportunity for you to use that crisis and to transform your business into a digital startup. For instance, you can accelerate your content marketing and publish content to maximize your visibility. You can improve your website's referencing on the search engines. You can position your firm on online searches for search for information. You can transform your website into a dynamic app. You can tap into email marketing, improve and harmonize your social media on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook for professionals. You can look at statistics and get some intelligence on how people are looking at your communication channels. And you can certainly consolidate your CRM, your customer relationship management, and make sure you have a clean and updated database which is operational. So number 7 is really focus on your digital marketing. And then number 8, and this is really important, is to be a sustainable individual or a sustainable company. Because not long time ago, the media were full of environment activists, Greta Thunberg, which was campaigning on how to save the planet. And actually, when you look at the term halal, it really means sustainable. And people will come out of this crisis. Consumers will come out of this crisis more sensitive, more sensible, because they are effective. And it would be really counterproductive if you would propagate panic-inducing content or capitalize on fear. This is not what the halal industry is about. So really, it is about of being a sustainable company as number 8. So my humble conclusion is that the only positive effect that the corona crisis brings to us is in fact that it pushes us to be a better company and improve our work. Well, this concludes my modest contribution to this seminar, and I would like to thank again my friend Dr. Sultan for inviting me to this panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. That was very interesting points and view from, regarding the strategies and also the recovery things that we need to refer to, because you are very, knows in details what's happening in the halal industry. And now we move to Miss Nahla Misbah. Miss Nahla.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Miss Nahla, I have a question for you. Miss Nahla, you were in charge in covering halal economy and government innovation in Dinar standard. So I think you know very details information and updates on the halal industry. Please, I have a question to you. Which sectors in the halal industry that have been the most impacted, and what is happening about the supply and demand of the halal products, especially in tourism and cosmetic sectors? Please, Ms. Nahla.
Thank you first for having me, and I would like to wish everybody a blessed Ramadan and thank my fellow speakers for the insights they have shared so far. And I think to start with the sectors that have been most...
The voice is not that clear, I guess.
Sorry?
Can you...
Is it clearer now?
Can you make it louder?
Sorry.
Can you... The volume of your speaker.
Is this better now?
Still not... can you adjust again the volume of the speakers?
You have to come closer to the microphone, please.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm trying. Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. So about the sectors that have been most affected, I think by now many of the attendees and the participants have already explained that the sector that is affected really on a global scale and in terms of halal economy is that of travel and tourism. As you can see from this slide, these are the different sectors of the halal economy, and the one that has been the highest affected negatively is that of Muslim-friendly travel. And this is especially because of travel restrictions in response to COVID-19. As you know, most countries, this is the first response that they have to impose travel restriction in order to stop the pandemic from spreading. So with this, there have been a lot of canceled flights, canceled trips everywhere, and this have started to affect the industry everywhere, and especially top countries. On the bright side, there are some sectors of the economy that have been not impacted as much, such as media and recreation, which could be seen as a substitute in terms of providing or filling the gap of recreation for consumers. So maybe it's not all negative. Some of it can be used in order to offset the negative impacts of COVID-19. So to look at the figures of travel and tourism and the impact thus far, can we move to the next slide, please? So the UNWTO is expecting, the one previous, thank you. So the UNWTO is expecting tourism arrivals to drop by 20 to 30% in 2020. And this is a loss of 300 to 450 billion in international tourism receipts. This is unprecedented, to borrow the word of Brother Rafi. This gets us back to the figures of 2012 and 2014. This drop is even higher than that of the global economic crisis of 2009, where we only had a 4% drop in tourism arrivals, and this is huge. In terms of halal economy, in terms of the tourism sector for the halal economy, can we move to the next slide, please? So in terms of the halal economy, we all know that Umrah and Hajj are mainly the main generators of revenue in this sector. And we all know also that Saudi Arabia has restricted Umrah starting March. And we don't know yet what will happen for Hajj. That means a big chunk of revenue in this sector is lost. Even considering the first, as you can see from this map, we have the first, the 5 top markets. So all of these countries now have travel restrictions, which means nobody's visiting. We don't know when these restrictions will be removed yet. So nobody knows the extent of the damage yet. They are all projections so far. But to put this in perspective, Indonesia in February, even before the travel restriction, have lost about 30%, almost 30% of tourism arrivals. So till the end of this pandemic or this crisis, which could take 1 year or 1.5 years, or until a vaccine is found and to be effective, we don't know yet the extent of the damage to the industry. And this is not only in terms of revenue, this is also in terms of jobs. So they are putting right now the loss of jobs to be at, in the tourism industry, to be at 75 million jobs lost. In terms of OIC countries, we see on the Indonesia projected to lose about 2.8 million jobs, okay? We see Turkey losing 700,000 jobs. We see Egypt losing 400,000, the UAE 200,000. These are jobs and that will be lost, income lost, which means also less demand from these countries, from the people who have lost their jobs for recreational activities. So it's a double problem here. So if you can move to the next slide as well, please. So what are people doing about it? What are countries doing about it? What is the industry doing about it right now? Because we cannot simply sit and watch what is going to happen. We need to be proactive. So in many countries, we have seen the use of virtual tours. So keep the interest alive in the destination, whether governments or companies, they're organizing virtual tours where people can see videos, guided tours, 3D of certain archaeological sites and all this. In Egypt, there are being used a lot lately, and you can find it being shared on all social media platforms. The same for Abu Dhabi. They have also have this hashtag Stay Curious, where they are inviting people to check the different videos of the different water sports and recreational activities out there. There are also good initiatives from the private sector, with some companies trying to find funding in order to help hotels and tourism companies deal with, after COVID-19, how are they going to re-engage their customers. We also have some governments that have provided support for their for companies, airlines, especially. The losses in airlines are huge. In the Middle East alone, they have Middle Eastern airlines have lost about $24 billion up to end April. So a huge loss. So all these cancellations, some countries are dealing with the penalty cancellations. They're trying to provide stimulus packages in order to keep the companies afloat. And this is a very important thing. And maybe more needs to be done in this area from governments. Another thing that we see by the industry is mergers. Some companies are merging together in order to stay afloat. There are talks about mergers between Air Malaysia and Air Asia. There are talks about mergers everywhere else in the hotel industry and so on. And this might help some companies stay afloat in the long run. So please move to the slide. So what is going to be the new normal? Because nobody's expecting once we pass this crisis that everything will go back to 2019 status quo. No, some things are going to change because this pandemic has made us discover a lot of problems, had made us discover how we are not really prepared. So some of the things that are going to change maybe is increased automation. Already this was in place and many airports were doing a lot of processes outside of the airports and being automated, but we will see an increase in that in order to ensure social distancing. Also, we will see probably less populated airplanes with less people on the airplane or smaller airplanes and so on, but this might affect also the prices of the tickets, which might affect demand as well. Some are predicting that we might have more direct routes in order to avoid quarantine in transit airports because we don't know yet who is lifting which restriction when and what will they do once you arrive in that transit airport. So we might see more direct routes instead of having a lot of stops along the way to avoid problems, to avoid to consumers. Also, we might see a rise in travel insurance that have cover COVID-19 and also any other contingency similar, because we have seen people stranded all around the world not being able to go back to their countries during this pandemic. So we need to cover that as well to make the consumer less anxious about the possibility of being stranded somewhere. We can see also that the selection criteria of consumers might change. Hygiene and safety and health criteria might be added to the regular criteria that we have right now. The need for sanitizers and masks and special cleaning for everything. All this might be a new requirement by the consumer and also could be required by the different governments around the world. So this is going to change how the industry is providing its products as well. Can we move to the next slide?
Okay.
Okay, so this is the last slide, and it's basically about the possibility for growth in media and recreation as a substitute product to travel. Because since we're all already at home, we have no recreational outlets for ourselves. Maybe media and recreation could fill that void up to a certain extent. Already there have been a lot of nice initiatives this Ramadan in many countries. So in the UK, they have held virtual iftars to make people feel less stranded and more together in this last month. There are apps everywhere right now where you can listen to lectures, Quranic, about the Quran, Sunnah, you can have questions, all this. So there is a very huge interest in that. So this is a good area. Another thing with being stranded, and if you want to see the world by being stranded, there is also a chance for documentaries, cultural documentaries about the different cultures, what you can see once everything opens up again and you can visit all these places that you wanted to visit. So there is still hope and there is still a possibility for growth for the halal economy, hopefully in different sectors that would offset the negative impact on travel and food. That's it for my presentation. I hope it was.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nahla, for your insightful explanation on this halal industry, especially for the media and recreation sector and halal tourism sector. For your information, distinguished speakers, there are 150 participants that participate in this discussion, and plus we have 80 participants which join this discussion through the YouTube video. So, ladies and gentlemen, we move to the next round. I will go to Professor Irwandi. Prof, you did mention about challenges and opportunities. And now, what are the immediate and possible initiative that government and Muslim scientists must do associated with this. Additionally, Prof, how do we maintain or substitute the ingredients for the halal products if there is short supply of raw materials? Please, Prof, maybe you have
Yes.
your views on this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, moderator. Can I get my...
Yeah, this is your
Yeah.
slide, Prof.
You get it?
Yes,
Can
yes.
you see? Yes. Okay. Thank you for the questions. To respond to the questions, I believe there are so many initiatives, so many ideas, and policies probably that we can do in answering to address the issue of COVID-19. But in short, in this opportunity, I just highlight very, very important things that Muslim scientists need to do in addressing the issue of COVID-19. To me, when as a scientist, when people ask what the contribution of the Muslim scientists, let's say, in combating COVID-19, the first answer to me is we have to strengthen our biodefense system. The term biodefense might be too big, but in a smaller capacity could be a medical biotechnology. This is from our experience when we relate to the way of Muslim countries or OIC countries, the way we handle bio-related threats, such as COVID-19 or a pandemic or any other outbreak. January and February show us the outbreak exposed the population of most countries to a dangerous virus. At the same time, perhaps more importantly, it has also exposed our weaknesses in supply, our preparedness, our readiness in facing this outbreak. It is very, very obvious as most of the Muslim countries looking for such as I mentioned earlier, PPE. We do not have even the personal protective equipment. We do not have masks ourselves. We cannot produce. Of course, now vaccine is not yet there in the market. But do we have initiative? We do have effort to search for the vaccine or any outbreak. So this kind of question need to be given to the Muslim scientists. Because in the future, we do not know whether another outbreak will be coming and we are facing the same problem again. So I appreciate the many initiatives done by, for example, IDB, by Malaysian government, Indonesian government, to provide a special allocation to search, to do R&D in related to COVID-19. So this is very, very, very good initiative. For example, to develop a new vaccine and pharmaceuticals. What vitamin that can boost our immune system, for example. And what vaccine do we, let's say the vaccine is discovered in America, do we need to import only from America or do we have to produce ourselves? Because from the scientific point of view, every place, the characteristic of the virus could be different, and then we had to come up with our own vaccine. This is my point. And then biomedical technology, pharmacy, biotechnology, epidemiology need to be strengthened for sure. Of course, this is not really related to halal industry, but to me, this is part of the halal industry, part of the halal lifestyle. In COVID-19 cases, most of the Muslims, as I mentioned, are not prepared, and import is not the answer for that. So please take the positive point of this pandemic by having to strengthen our R&D. Yes, we are lacking in the past, but take this time as the moment for us to strengthen our R&D. And then when with regard to the SME, social medium enterprise, to me, when we see the halal industry, we cannot forget the contribution of small medium enterprise. So with the pandemic of COVID-19, SME needs to be looked into, need to be considered as a major contribution to the social and economy of the countries. In Malaysia, for example, 98.5% of the registered company are SMEs. This is in Malaysia, and they are contributing to the halal industry. Similarly to Indonesia, there is some figures here. Unfortunately, some words are in Indonesia. This is micro, small, and medium. And we see this, the micro industry is very, very big in numbers, close to 60 million units. If we can take this as the focus of the government to strengthen our halal industry, I think this is a brilliant idea. And then and we see this is the total income in trillion. So back to development of the SME. To be honest, that in the past, SME probably sidelined, in terms of policy, in terms of the economy priorities, etc. There are three issues related to the SME. Again, it's Indonesia, but this is a halal documentation. So they always got problem in getting the halal documentation. For some, even halal is a burden for them. Halal certification is a burden for them. Second one is access to get the critical material. In halal industry, there are few critical ingredients that they do not have alternative for that. For example, gelatin. In the country, the big country like Indonesia, we do not have enough gelatin. We import 100 tons of halal gelatin a year, while we have actually the potential to produce our own halal gelatin. So this is the issue for the SME. Another issue that I think I missed just now is that this one. This is the survey conducted to 1,000 micro industry in Indonesia, in 18 provinces in Indonesia, showed that 25% of them is very difficult to implement the standard of production. For example, HACCP, standard production, which is comply with the international standard or national standard even. So this thing is among the issue that we have to address when we want to get SMEs a main player. I agreed with the previous speaker saying that the local production need to be given the priority. It's true, because in the halal industry so far, for countries like Indonesia, focus Indonesia, because most of us are from Indonesia, and SME industry is still a big problem in Indonesia. While we are as a big Muslim countries, but yet to be a main player of halal industry in the world. So I think the opportunities here is to empower SME by producing local products, and how to make the local product having the international standard and can be exported. I came to know that in the top 200 halal brand in the world, only 1 or 2 from Indonesia. It's a sad story, and not many also from Malaysia. Even Thailand can contribute about close to 20 out of the 200 top halal brands. So this is just time here for us to strengthen our SME and give them, for example, technology, automation, and also digitalization. If possible, why not? Yeah. I just come back, just before COVID, I came back from South Korea. I just give you one experience. There is one village in South Korea. They produce, in that village, they just produce special lime. This typical lime that produced in that area. And the lime cannot be eaten fresh, cannot be consumed fresh because it's too sour. So what the government did was to provide biofermenter for the farmers. Imagine the biofermenter is given to the farmers, train the farmers to produce. From lime, they produce alcohol. Directly, they produce vinegar. And now I see 400 of farmers in that area in South Korea are a major businessmen because they export the vinegar to close to 50 Muslim countries. So this is one of the examples how to empower SME. So there are, again, I conclude, there are 3 things that I would like to address here, to stress out here. Number 1 is it's time for us to strengthen our bio defense system. You know, in short, we can say biomedical or medical biotechnology. Number 2 is a digital economy, where which other speakers has elaborated just now. And number 3 is empowerment of small and medium enterprise. Yes, Prof. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. Irwandi, for your insightful explanation. So now we go to the next question to Brother Rafiuddin and Miss Nahla Misbah together. I think I have the same question, but maybe you have different perspective and opinions. For Mr. Rafiuddin, do you think that the OIC countries must collaborate hand in hand to sustain the halal market industry? Please, Brother Rafiuddin.
Thank you, Ahmad. In fact, I'd have my colleague Nahla to kick this answer off, and then I will continue.
Okay. No problem.
Okay. So, of course, as we all know, most OIC countries are net importers. And the only area where we are net exporters may be energy. So that means, and because of the restrictions all around the globe and the expected rise in prices and the problems even in procuring products, that means that we need more cooperation from OIC economies. We need all to sustain each other during these times and ensure that we can complement each other in terms of industrial capacities in the short and the long term as well. So in this slide, you can see clearly the top regional investment growth markets on the left. And as you can see, there are certain economies which are top investment markets, like in MENA, there is Egypt, there is Saudi Arabia and GCC, the UAE and Qatar. All these countries have good potential. And on the right, you can see the areas or the sectors where we are with importers and exporters. So as you can see, energy is the only area where we are net exporters. So maybe Rafi can go on and offer more details in terms of how we can cooperate and sustain ourselves in the next period.
Sure. So thank you, Sister Nahla. So as to the question that Professor you had about the importance of connectivity, as we know that the supply chain is under tremendous disruption worldwide, and there's a big movement where governments are considering supply chains to be closer to home and be less subject to disruptions. And OIC countries and the halal economy certainly offer that opportunity. I think we have to look at this not as a charity, not as just, okay, we are brothers and we should do this. I think that certainly should be a motivation, but ultimately we have to answer a business case, the economic case. And there is an economic case. Besides the energy sector that we know, food and agriculture is in fact the second biggest industry cluster across OIC countries. So within the food security question, food supply chain question, the food and agriculture sector within OIC is a big area of opportunity, and different countries are strong in different areas. So vis-a-vis halal economy, that's the one big thing that stands out. You can also see fashion-wise, textile is another big related area, and of course travel and transportation as well. So these three sectors which are strong, as you see on the right hand side, are opportunities for OIC countries to collaborate. And one of the things, as other presenters, specifically Professor Irwandi also highlighted, when you look at halal products, food, pharma, and cosmetics, in 2018, top 9 of the 10 exporters were non-OIC countries, as you can see on the right-hand side chart. And number 10th is Indonesia, which is the, you could say within OIC, the top. And on the left-hand side, you can see the top exporters and top importers. So again, when you look at the top exporters, the supply chains are going to be disrupted. USA, Brazil, France, they are going to come. They're already a lot of, as we are tracking the food sector, the main ingredients for animal food processing feeds, animal feed, which comes from the West, is severely being affected. Meat is being affected already. This is happening right now. So bringing the supply chain closer to OIC will make sense economically as well. So certainly the opportunity is clear. We all in the halal economy space have been driving this point, but now it's only going to get accelerated. And specifically, and we're going to talk about this in our research brief more detail, but when you look at the case, the business case of OIC countries, within just the halal food space, there are significant mergers and acquisition and supply chain engagement opportunities. So you see here in the chart an analysis that was done by us in 2015 of the food and agriculture sector within OIC countries, the core supplier countries, the core manufacturers, and the core consumer markets. And then we have identified below the key areas where within OIC countries there's opportunities to substitute imports from foreign and different places to the competencies within the OIC countries. So I think in conclusion to this question, definitely the OIC countries should collaborate, and they should collaborate because it makes economic and resilient sense. There's also political implications today with the post-COVID-19, and I think these alignments will further support the halal economy.
Okay, thank you, Brother Rafiuddin and Ms. Nahla for the explanation. I think that was very valuable information for us, that we can see the updates and the reports on the halal industry and how to collaborate among the OIC countries. And inshallah, we can do it by collaborating and by focusing on agriculture, not only oil industry. So now we go to the last question to Prof. Laurent. As Prof. Laurent mentioned just now about the strategies, how to minimize the COVID-19 impact. And now specifically, Prof, to what extent is the global halal supply chain affected by the COVID-19? And how are the CEO MNCs coping with this situation related to the halal product and market, as well as the SMEs Prof, can you give your opinion on this?
Dr. Rafiki,
Yes.
Laurent sent an excuse because he has an important matter, so he has to leave the conference, the webinar.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Dr. Sultan. Okay, so because so now we go to the next agenda, which is question and answer from the participant. There are many questions actually. I try to choose some of them, and maybe the speakers have the answer for this. Okay, I will read the questions. I think this question dedicated to Professor Irwandi.
Okay.
His name is Banu, the one of the participant. So his question is about the halal vaccine. How difficult is to find a halal vaccine for COVID-19? And he also asks you whether Malaysian institution has worked on the vaccine on this COVID-19. Please, Prof, maybe you have your opinion on this.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Banu. With regard to the development of vaccine, not only for COVID-19 vaccine, for any vaccine, normally it takes at least 18 months. It's to me 18 months, from development, initial development, until trial, and then the what we call is human trial. Of course, it is not as easy as development of any other pharmaceutical. Vaccine is typical to address certain virus, and the typical of the virus, characteristic of the virus is very unique. Even it is different from from COVID-19. For example, the virus in China and the virus in Indonesia, it might be different from in Italy or Spain. It's slightly mutated and slightly different. So to come up with the vaccines, you have to do intensive research for that. And then for COVID-19, I think it takes about 1 year to 18 months to do. And for any other vaccine as well. The problem is that we do not, for many Muslim countries or IC countries, we do not put our priority to development of vaccine in the past. If you realize that even for us to perform Hajj or Umrah, and then there was issue in the past that our vaccine was not halal. Okay, so we still rely on the import vaccine. Okay, similarly for the vaccine for our kids, our children, etc. So the main thing here is that we have to make our R&D environment, our R&D ecosystem, R&D atmosphere are correct first. Then we will develop many pharmaceutical products. I'm sure that Indonesia are now developing a vaccine. Yeah, I know. Yeah, and Indonesia also used to produce vaccine. What about Malaysia? I think they are also in the effort to produce a vaccine. But one thing that I know at the moment, they're trying to use existing we call it natural compound, existing product they have already there in the market for other purposes, for example, and then they try to see the effectiveness, efficacy on the virus, coronavirus. So I believe vaccine is also one of the initiative. Yeah, but not only for Indonesia and Malaysia, I urge for many more Muslim countries to go into this. Vaccine, pharmaceutical is very, very basic. It's as important as our food. So when we can put our halal priority to food, why not for medical? Why not for pharmaceutical? Yes, some said that vaccine is darurah concept always. You know, when we do not have other alternative, we can use non-halal vaccine even. Yes, but darurah, there is a limit for darurah. We cannot have a darurah concept all the time. From we are born until we die, the darurah always. And from generation to generation, what we inherited is only darurah term, not an effort to develop our own vaccine. So this is my I think my views that how important we may collaborate. There's a scientists in various countries they collaborate to come up with our own, not only for vaccine but in general for pharmaceutical product. It's specific is a halal pharmaceutical product. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof, for your answer, and I hope Mr. Banu can get the answer. And very interesting point that you mentioned just now. Now, I have a question to Brother Rafiuddin. This is the question from Uta Miningsi Linarti, one of the Indonesian participant from Indonesia. So her question is whether the supply chain of the halal industry can be more shorter as a strategy, and because we are now having limited mobility. So what do you think, Brother Rafiuddin, regarding the supply chain can be shortened or not?
As you know, as we have shared in some of the data points earlier, the halal industry is it's a huge sector. When we just talk about the food and pharma, and Professor Irwandi has very importantly highlighted just the importance on the medical, pharmaceutical, vaccine side and research on that front. But just within food, it's a very, very complex and global value chain from sectors that, as I showed at the end, the supply, the early supply part of the value chain to the processed food and the distribution and where the consumer markets are. So today, we are for any industry reliant on a global supply chain. So it's a very broad question. But what I would say is, if I were to summarize, is that if the objective is to shorten the supply chain in terms of ensuring more secure access, more reliability of the supply chain for our consumers and the end users, ultimately, we have to look at those parts of the supply chain within the categories that are very much dependent on far and wide supply chain providers, and look at alternatives, first of all, nearer to our regions, and preferably, ideally, domestic. But domestic is not always possible if we don't have competency, and we cannot create heavily government subsidized solutions, because that's not going to be sustainable. As an economy, Indonesia is blessed to be a very agriculturally endowed and blessed economy. So there is a lot of opportunity for an economy like Indonesia to develop further self-sufficiency, raise the bar in terms of quality. But the only way you can shorten the supply chain is really by addressing all of the aspects of the supply chain, because it's a complex, it's quite complex. It's very different per sector. So some of these points hopefully, give us some direction around it.
Okay, Brother Rafiuddin, maybe I have another question from the participant from Helza. So she's asking about the halal standard, international standard through WTO. So could be possible for us to have this kind of collaboration among the OIC that we have a halal certification standard among OIC countries. Is that proposed before, or maybe still still not yet? Okay, maybe you have information on this, brother.
I think in the halal certification harmonization effort worldwide has been going on for a very long time. It's been very challenging. It's been quite contentious. There are national interests, there are regional considerations, and then, as you know, because the halal product ecosystem and its supply chain is truly global, a lot of non-OIC countries are significantly impacted by the existing non-harmonized halal standards worldwide. And frankly, from our analysis, I don't know if we will need to or we can get to one standard, because just from a madhab point of view, religiously there are different variations, but we can certainly come to a certain harmonized platform. Getting WTO involved as the main driver, I'm not sure is the most productive path. I think we have this is something the OIC countries, Muslim majority countries, have to solve for. We don't have our acts together yet. How will we expect WTO to really further help us? I think WTO certainly, from our understanding, has been considering this topic, but in fact, there is a potential for a negative impact. Halal compliance today at an international level can actually be seen as a trade, what they call as non-tariff trade barrier. And this is a risk for our halal economies. And so my view is, or I'd say our view is that there is a lot of efforts going on already. As we know, within Indonesia with BPJPH and other initiatives now, Indonesia is on a very strong path towards implementing halal compliance within its ecosystem. This will help Indonesia's competitiveness and exportability of its products to the halal markets, rest of the world. Saudi Arabia, another major influencer, has brought in similar major new changes in terms of its halal regulatory laws. UAE is already, along with Malaysia, has been leading around these efforts already. So I think on the regulation, halal compliance standards, harmonization, there is efforts underway, and I should not forget to mention SMEEC, which is the OIC umbrella body that is responsible to also bring harmonization across the halal standard. So there are a lot of efforts already underway. I would say the focus, the real impact is the focus on industrialization, is the focus on identifying where and how can we, as an industry in these food and pharma and cosmetic, become competitive, bring our R&D up, bring our product marketing and branding, as Jonathan Wilson had mentioned earlier, up. I think these are the areas that need to be focused on now, relative to the focus we already have on the compliance side. So this would be our humble view on this.
Okay, thank you, Brother Rafiuddin. Maybe there is another question from the participant to Ms. Nahla. This is related to the SMEs. So Professor Irwandi mentioned just now the SMEs affected too much in Indonesia. But how about the SMEs in OIC countries? Maybe you have your general view on how the SMEs, which producing the halal product, how they are respond to this COVID-19. Ms. Nahla, maybe you have your opinion on this?
It's okay. First, I think SMEs across the world, not only in halal economies, have been severely impacted. Generally speaking, they don't have a much latitude to move. And in terms of layoffs, there have been a lot of layoffs. Of course, in the tourism sector, this has been a major problem. We've seen large layoffs in Dubai, people stranded, they're not able even to go home with the travel restrictions. We've seen this across the industry, the service industry in general. This has been a huge problem. The hope right now is for some kind of government intervention, some kind of latitude in funding for these companies in order for them to survive. Also, we've seen even bigger scale companies looking for mergers to survive the pandemic. So maybe also smaller companies have this. Some people have tried innovative things. I've seen here in Egypt several of the food and beverage industry trying to come up with new ideas in order for them to survive. I've seen something like small apps that allow them to basically people to pick up their products in front of the shops instead of going in if these companies cannot provide delivery. So there is room for innovation in order for them to survive. There is room for mergers in order for them to survive. There is also room for government intervention in order to help them reduce the layoffs. So hopefully we can come out of this pandemic somehow with a large portion of the SMEs intact.
Inshallah. Inshallah. Thank you for your answer, Ms. Nahla. I have another question from the participant, Ms. Fadila Jihan. I think this question dedicated to Professor Irwandi. Prof. Irwandi, her question is there possibility of a product contaminated by COVID-19? And also, how to make sure that the product is safe and not contaminated by COVID-19?
Yeah.
Maybe you have your view, Prof.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the questions. Very tricky questions. This is from my readings here from Food and Agriculture FAO website, saying that until now, no issues of foodborne virus, COVID, meaning that the food is not the carrier of this virus. So far, no case yet found. Okay, this number one. Number two, is there any possibility that our food is contaminated? Okay. The possibility is always there because the virus is very, very small. It's is in nano size. Yeah, the size is very, very small. There's a possibility if we are not careful, especially when we intake with the food. In most cases, the most possibility is that in the packaging. Yeah. If you do the food and then the packaging is not proper, so there is possibility, and then you do if you are impacted one. But so far, as I mentioned earlier, from FAO report, no such report yet. So the possibility there. But one thing that we have to take what we call hikmah from the COVID-19 issues is that cleanliness is number one. Yeah, we highlight cleanliness is highlighted, and then I believe that from the COVID-19, many people now look into the cleanliness number one, the wash hand more frequently, and then even non-Muslim now look for the halal food because they believe that the halal food is more clean. So this is my view. So back to your question, is a possibility? Yes, possible, but so far no cases yet. Yeah, especially for the food service and the processed one. Second one is as long as you keep the cleanliness, inshallah, contamination of COVID is can be avoided. We thank Allah that from the COVID issues, people now open their eyes toward halal food, toward the cleanliness, toward the practice of Muslim in the practice of Muslim wudu, washing hand, taking baths, etc., etc. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. I think now we end our session for Q&A session. So before I conclude all the speech from the distinguished speakers, to remind you for all the speakers after this session, we have a photo session, and please don't leave the meeting. So this is very wonderful discussion today. We have our experience, our very experienced expert related to the halal science and research and also industry. So from the beginning, Professor Irwandi mentioned about the R&D. We are lacking in R&D related to the halal product, and there are many initiatives that should be taken by the government and also by the scientists, Muslim scientists. And then Brother Rafiuddin also mentioned about the impacted sectors, especially the tourism and the travel. But the media and recreation sector still can be sustained or not really impacted. And we must optimize because there are many things that we can focus on, emphasize on. For example, like agriculture sector, that we can focus and produce more, and we do not rely on import product. And Professor Laurent also mentioned about the strategies, for example, like transparency, trust, and traceability that we must adopt. And there are many also steps or recovery recovery things that we need to adopt. For example, like leadership mindset, adapt to changes, and also networking, marketing budget, and also communication. So there are many things need to be explored related to halal, but since our time is very limited, and I hope that all the participants can get some knowledge, updates, information related to the halal industry due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Thank you very much for all our distinguished speakers for the valuable contribution, views, opinions, and insightful explanation related to the halal industry. Let's close this event by citing Hamdalah. On behalf of National Committee for Islamic, Economic and Finance, Dinar Standard, the Indonesian Association of Islamic Economists, and the Medan Area University, we would like to thank to all participants for your attention. And participants, see you in the next series, inshallah. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. For all the speakers,
pictures for the speakers and moderators, just for our record only, inshallah. Maybe please turn on your camera, speakers, and also those who give the opening remarks, Prof. Ramdan and Pak Afdhal, and also Prof. Radit. Okay, Atika, if all of them are already shown, please take the pictures, Atika.
Yes, sir, but only for peoples in the pictures. Is it okay?
How many?
4.
4.
Yes.
Who are they now?
Mr. Irwandi, Pak Rafiki, Mr. Rafiuddin, and Mrs. Nahla.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then later after that maybe Pak Afdhal and then Prof Radit if he's still here, and Prof Ramdan.
I'm still here.
Yeah.
Okay, done, sir.
Okay.
Yep. Wait. Now Prof Irwandi. Now Pak Afdhal.
Did you get Pak Afdhal also?
Not yet, sir.
Pak Afdhal?
Yes, Pak Amir, I'm here.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Wait a minute, sir. Pak Afdhal and then
Prof Radit, are you still here? Maybe he has left.
Yeah.
Prof Ramdan? Prof Dadan?
Okay, I'm seeing.
Okay.
Actually, I need you to speak first so that I can pin so that the you'll be
Yeah.
appear in.
Prof Radit, can you speak if you don't mind, Prof Radit? So your picture will appear.
Prof Radit.
Okay. How is it now, Atiko? Done?
No, only Pak Afdhal and Pak Rafiki, sir.
Okay. No.
Maybe there is minimum of or maximize. Maximum picture.
Maximize. Maximize is 4, and then actually, in order for me to take the pictures, the speaker need to speak first so that I can pin the speakers and then appear in the screen. Hello, Prof Dadan, can you speak again?
Okay.
Hello.
Who are we asking for, Ms. Atika?
Prof Dadan.
Yeah. Okay.
Director of UMA.
Yeah.
Pak Dadan?
Ya. Saya sendiri
Boleh?
sini.
Ya.
Ya, Pak.
Ya.
Yep.
Boleh ngomong sedikit, Pak, biar
Okay.
muncul.
Okay.
Ya, nih saya di sini, Pak.
Now, yep. Dadan, Pak Rafiki, and Pak Afdhal. Is it
Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think Prof Radit has left because
Yes.
yeah. Okay, Pak Rafiki is done. Everything is done.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For all the speakers. Thank you very much. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you very much.
Salam.
Terima kasih, Pak Rafiki.
Alhamdulillah,
Terima kasih, Prof.
Sukses, Pak Rafiki. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih, Prof. Terima kasih, Prof.
We are really getting benefit from this session. Jazakumullah khair. Jazakumullah khair.
See you in the next series. Insyaallah. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Salam.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.